Welcome back to the Agency Insider, your one stop show for all things marketing. Today, we are thrilled to have Patrick Stock with us. Patrick is a renowned SEO expert, product advisor, and doing technical SEO at Ahrefs. He is here to share his insights on navigating the ever evolving world of SEO and crafting winning strategies for the modern marketers. We'll be discussing some really exciting topics today, from the latest trend in SEO to some behind the scene development at Ahrefs. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Yes. Patrick, you have had such an interesting journey in the SEO world. For our listeners who may not be as familiar with your background, could you share a bit about how you got started in SEO and what led you to your current role in Ahrefs?
Yeah, well, a long time ago, I was a web developer. One day they asked me about like how do I rank better, and so I learned about SEO back then. That's probably 20-ish years ago at this point. But full time for SEO, probably since like 2009. I worked with some like B2B engineering companies. Went off, did my own thing, like consulting for a few years. Worked at an agency, and I was in house at IBM, and now at Ahrefs.
Okay, so you work with IBM in doing the SEO work as well?
Yeah. Lots of stuff related to technical content. Had my hands like everywhere. It's a lot of things to do there.
Okay, that's interesting. So, what drew you to focus on technical SEO specifically, and how has your role evolved over time, especially as the SEO landscape is changing constantly?
Well, that's an interesting point. I guess publicly, I still say like technical SEO. That's what I'm known for. I write a lot about it, and that's what a lot of people will will know about me. But I've also focused like content. I do a lot of our like programmatic strategies at Ahrefs because they are a little more technical, being that like they're data driven and everything. Yeah, I do actually like we have a lot of JavaScript on our website too. That's always fun challenges. But there's not really a ton of technical SEO work to do at Ahrefs. I do help on the product side though. So a lot of our new reports, visualizations, a lot of stuff within site audit. It's always fun just coming up with like what should we build next.
Okay, obviously, HRFS is built SEO friendly with their popular blogs, which get, of course, so much traffic. And that is why I'm wearing the same t-shirt as yours, because we all love HRFS. My team loves it, and we absolutely really go gaga over using it for all the SEO work which we do here at PageStuff.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great to hear.
Yes. Uh, Now, you've been, of course, at the forefront of SEO with your work at HRFS and, of course, contribution to the SEO community. I would like to start with a fresh perspective. Of course, SEO has evolved significantly in the past few years. What one trend is in SEO that you feel hasn't been talked about enough and is still under the radar, but could become pivotal in the next couple of years?
I'm going to go with what is referred to as Edge SEO. It's more really like what devs would call serverless. Basically, you can edit the website on the server side or like on the CDN level, typically, before it's ever served to bots or users. So there's a lot of things that could be fixed basically with the push of a button. And we actually have a product that's about to launch related to that. So I think people are going to be pretty happy with that. Like a lot of the stuff that's in current SEO audits, even ours, as a tech SEO, I'm like, well, it's mostly are time wasters. Like people put interns to go rewrite 800 meta descriptions. Now we have AI, like AI, right? These 800 meta descriptions, click a button, implement it on the website. Done. It shouldn't be something that takes, hours, days, weeks of someone's time to do a lot of these things. When now it can be automated, and even the implementation can be automated.
Right. Okay. And of course, with so many algorithm updates happening, how do you see search engines evolving in terms of balancing automation and content quality? And how do these changes impact large scale content strategies?
I mean, a lot of the large scale content strategies didn't work out. They got hit by
After the
an
recent
algorithm
update.
update. We're tracking a bunch of these websites, and I think we saw some decent recovery with the last update, but now a lot have fall in again. So the people that are trying to automate this are not doing well, and I think that in general has always been the case. Like Google's just not going to reward something that you're not spending a lot of time on, putting effort in, like improving. We actually have some programmatic plays that are doing well, but they're done a little bit differently. Like we had a bunch of tools and stuff, and we have some stuff that are like top pages, but we're showcasing all of our data throughout all these pages. So it's not that we're just like putting this out there and trying to just automate a bunch of informational content. I think that's what a lot of people are doing. It's just not going to work.
Okay. Right. And I mean, of course, Ahrefs is one of the most comprehensive SEO tool out there. And of course, you've been instrumental in shaping some of its in that direction. Can you give us a sneak peek into some of the exciting upcoming features or tools at Ahrefs that SEO community should be paying attention to?
Well, we just launched our AI content helper. Not really like writing the content for you. I don't know if we'll go that route with it yet or not. But it is a little different than a lot of the content tools that are out there. Like you can't just stuff the keywords. Like a lot of the tools like use this keyword 13 times,
Right.
use this one 7 times. Or, like even if they're like use it once or whatever, it helps the score. Ours doesn't work that way. Like it actually works similarly to our search engine yep.com. So you actually have to like write about the topic, cover the topic, and make good content if you want that like score to increase. And I think that's throwing a lot of our users for a loop because they just expect to be able to like add some keywords, sprinkle them in, and to get a better score. But we're really trying to push people to actually make their content better. I talked about the Edge SEO system that we have coming. That's called Patches really soon. I don't know when this goes live, but might already be launched by then. We also have like an Index Now integration coming. Well,
Right.
it's there, but like
Right.
we have another system that is real-time crawling. So
Okay.
we're gonna be shifting instead of like you schedule for a weekly, a monthly audit, that we're basically constantly crawling the website with a prioritization system. So we're not like overloading servers or anything. But yeah, more important pages crawled more often, less important crawled less often. But it's gonna switch how things are done because now we have this index now protocol also where you can tell us when you make changes and we can then go crawl those pages pretty much immediately, like within a matter of seconds. And then we can tell you if something's wrong. You accidentally marked the page no index, or you changed the canonical tag, or whatever. Like we'll be able to see that literally in a matter of seconds and send you alerts to say like this changed, this got messed up. You might want to go fix this like now.
Especially, I really love the way you can go and compare the code and shows how many changes were done. I mean, that change came recently and we all love it, especially if you have to look at your website. What the best part I loved is that you can actually see competitor website whenever they done the changes, when that graph went up. So that's actually a very nice feature. We already are enjoying it a lot.
I love that. We have screenshots coming to that soon also.
Okay.
So you'll be able to see like visually like what parts of the
Yeah,
page
that would
changed.
we so it's right now we can just see the code, so we will be able to see it visually as well.
Yeah, well, right now you have like the code, which
Like,
might be the raw HTML or it could be rendered HTML if we rendered the page, and
right.
then the extracted text. But yeah, we're internally already like storing the screenshots, and we'll have a front end interface for it soon.
Can't wait for that. That would be much cooler because I mean, of course, for a non-techie, it's little technical to understand, but yeah, that would be a great tool as well. So one thing that always intrigues me is the balance between a technical advancement in tool and usability for end users. At a product advisor at Ahrefs, what's your process for identifying and prioritizing new features?
We have multiple processes, which I guess it's a little complicated, but we have like ahrefs.canny.io where users can submit feedback. They're always giving feedback to like our support team, or people message like me or Tim Sulo or a bunch of people like to give feedback that way as well. And we end up talking to a lot of our customers. Then our own internal team, we also have a way to suggest new features. Like we're users of the tool too, so we're like trying to do a process, and we're like, "Well, I can't do this. Like, how can I get this data?" And the answer sometimes is like, "You just can't." And so we try and like build the things that like we actually need within the product itself. But yeah, this feedback comes from everywhere. And then we have this, it goes through this whole process of like prioritization based on like, how many people have been asking for this, who's asking, how important this feature seems. We even have this idea of like unicorn ideas, which are, it's not as simple as like, can we add this filter? Can we add this data point? But it's like, can we go build this other completely different thing? Page inspect was one of those, the one that allows the code comparison. And yeah, they're a lot of times not easy projects. And may take a while. Like, I don't even remember how long that took, but several months at least of development time to get everything set up for that. But we like to kind of split that in like not just let's go with the things people are asking us for, but like let's give them something new, something different, something interesting.
Yeah, because this is one tool where we see constantly new things being updated. You guys constantly mailing your subscribers about the new things. So that's one thing we love about the how much you keep the community involved.
Yeah, it's funny because we try and tell people with dashboard updates, the newsletters, we have product blogs, we have product videos. Tim, myself, Ryan, some others, we're always like posting on the social media, no matter how much we tell, like how many channels we use to tell people, like it seems like the not everyone knows about all the new features anyway. We have change logs and everything, but it's never enough that everyone knows about everything. But there's so many things in the tool already, and I think it's hard to keep up with all the new things.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So can you share any insights on how Ahrefs approaches data collection and accuracy, especially given the vast amount of data you guys handle?
Where do I even start? Yeah, let's go with, for instance, link data. I mean, we focus on data, I think, more than any other tool, and we have more data than any other tool. For the link data, we're literally crawling the web. We have one of the fastest crawlers on the web. You can check Cloudflare Radar, a bunch of other sources. I did this whole analysis of public log files, and yeah, we just crawl more than any other search or search engine tool bot, I should say. So there's a whole like prioritization system there. We're trying not to crawl a bunch of junk. We actually keep a specific index size, which is usually, I think, around 350 billion pages or so. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. Like sometimes we want to see, like for quality reasons, I think one time we bumped it to, I don't know, 400, 420, 430 billion pages. But like all the extra that we got was basically spam. It was junk, and we're just like, no, let's like rein that back in because it's just creating noise in the reports at a certain point. So we try and crawl like most of the good part of the web, keep that updated. I think our goal is to crawl to update everything at least every 6 months. If not, we just drop that because if our system basically said like this wasn't important enough to crawl in the last 6 months, then it's probably just not important to keep in the index.
Okay, makes sense.
There's so much, I don't know, like there's so much data, keywords and stuff. It's funny,
Right.
a lot of these tools they count things in kind of different ways than we do. We actually like we start with how many? I have to look at our big data page, but something like 116, 118 billion keywords that we know about. And we filter that down, like we remove a lot of the noise, a lot of the low search volume, like something we saw in our data like once or whatever. Like it's typically not that important. And I think our final number that we call that down to is like 28 billion. But a lot of these other tools, like their full data set is less than that, and that includes the junk
Right.
terms and the zero volume thing. So that's interesting, I think, for people that when they realize like we actually have so much more data than people than others.
Right. Now, I suddenly, so with the AIO, of course, are you guys doing something keeping that? Because there are very less tools out there which could tell about the AIO. I know it's very nascent stage right now, but do you guys have anything in the roadmap for that?
Yeah. So the data is being recorded right now. We're working on the front end. You'll probably see it in just a few days, like next week, probably at the latest.
Wow. Okay, because I was doing the presentation on AIO, and when I was researching, I mean, there were only Bright Edge and a couple of tools, Zip there. So there were only a couple of tools out there doing it. So I thought, good time to ask.
Yeah, it's not as straightforward as people think. Like ZipTie, they do it with logged in users and stuff, but they're specifically doing this for the AI overviews. Like they're
Right.
not I think they're not really like doing it for rank tracking too. And like you kind of run into this issue where you for rank tracking you really need unpersonalized logged out results. But for AI overviews, they're not shown to logged out users like
Yes.
that. So you run into this issue of like this data quality issue that we had to solve. I know some tools like launch this, but if you go look at their data, it's like 3% of what it should actually show because they're not actually like tracking this stuff properly.
Right, right, right. So one of the question which came from my team specifically, who do the lot of link building. So this they want to ask that we all know what is a DR, of course, domain rating, and why it is important. Now, can you throw some light on UR and why should we be caring about that as well? Because we or link builders in general just look at DR. So is there any purpose they should be looking into a UR, and is there something good into UR, or we just should ignore it?
So it's an interesting problem because you're right. Like the link building community focuses on DR because if you're building something new, like you're not really going to have a UR score for that. But really, if you're trying to build links on existing pages, UR is the metric that you should be using. Like it is basically like an updated version of PageRank, which Google still uses for a lot of things. That is the measure of actually how strong the page itself is rather than the overall domain. So like the DR, you're like, I'm going to build a page, but it might be a weak page on a good domain. Whereas UR is specifically like you can tell if it's a strong page or not. But it again, I think different metrics for different things. The new pages, like I said, UR just doesn't exist for them. So like you can't just automatically assume this is going to be whatever a good thing or a bad thing. So that's where like DR is useful. But if you're trying to get the links on existing pages, UR is the metric to go for.
Okay. So, but let's say in a case where we have seen if a DR is 60, the UR of a home page, the UR is still in lower digits like 20 or 18. So what does one take from that?
I mean, 18 or 20 on UR is a pretty decent score. That means that page is fairly well linked, either
Okay.
internally or externally, because it takes into account both. Like we see all the internal links on the website too. And so all that is like calculated in that. And I would say a page on a UR 1820, absolutely, I would be trying to get a link from there.
Okay. So it's not UR needs to be like 80, 90, 100.
I think you would be hard pressed to find very many that are that high.
Okay. Okay. Because sometimes we would talk and we say, you got the DR increase, but why is UR so low? And now I get the answer.
I mean, I would focus more on like relevancy than the
Okay.
metrics, but a UR of like 18 to 20 is a pretty solid page, I
All right.
believe.
All right. All right. That's a relief. Even our website has a UR in less than 20. So I always think, is there something wrong with the backlink profile?
Well, it's a logarithmic scale, so it gets increasingly harder to get higher numbers. I think most pages probably sit in the like 10 to 30 range. Above that is going to be pretty hard. Like you're going to need a lot of links to specifically that page, again, from other websites or internally on
Right.
your own website. But it gets harder and harder. So yeah, if you're aiming for like 80, 90, you might like homepage of Google and stuff,
Okay.
those, but I don't think you'll see too many outside of that.
Okay. So that's good to know for everyone. I'm sure most of the people confuse these. Now, let's talk a little bit about the AI and machine learning in SEO. Of course, AI and machine learning and LLMs are becoming a buzzword in SEO, but they are also transforming how we approach search. What role do you see AI playing in SEO strategy, especially in terms of ranking factor and content development?
Uh, I mean, in my personal opinion, the LLMs are not good at writing the content, but they are good at like rewording or summarizing or trying to help you get your thoughts together. So they are useful for some parts of the writing. Where I think it's a little untapped, but like people have been working on this stuff for years. Automation is like the big play in my opinion. So I mentioned like the Edge system and stuff. Let's rewrite 800 meta descriptions, title tags. There's a lot of things that you can do. I'm hoping to personally launch this. I'm going to say next year. But like years ago, I wrote a script to map redirects for people to say like what content is relevant to the content that used to be there. I want a button that basically is like, yeah, run this and give people the output and say like, this is where we think you should redirect these pages. Like we have the data to say, here are the pages with links that are just like 404 and like where on the current site matches the content that used to be there. Well, we see the content that used to be there. We're storing that. Or there's always archive.org. I think the original scripts I wrote all use like archive.org or common crawl data for that. But yeah, you can crawl the current website and then just match the pages and say, this is the most relevant, or here are the top 3 most relevant. Pick which one you want to redirect it to. Output the redirects, implement them automatically even. A lot of this stuff is just going to save people time on the analysis, time on the implementation. It's a whole new era, and like there's some cool stuff coming, I think.
Okay. Do you foresee any significant shift in how SEO professionals should adapt their technical audits or the keyword research in response to AI-driven search engines like Google's anticipated advancements?
Maybe not necessarily for the search engines, but for the models themselves or like the AI overviews. A lot of that is like a summarization. So I kind of personally view it similar to what we did with featured snippets. You want to be in the featured snippet, write something similar, maybe add some value in some way. So you have to be more targeted with specific like paragraphs or sections to then try and like be included in that. And it's going to be the same with a lot of the large language models when they're coming up with this. Well, they work a little differently. Like the search engines actually summarize like what's already there in the results. At least that's how the one for Google works. Whereas the large language models, they kind of write their own thing and then they try and like reference things that said something similar to what they said. But either way, it really needs to be like more targeted, really summarize or write well specific items within your content if you want to be like referenced or included in those things.
Okay. So now let's jump into something you are known for, technical SEO. Let's do a deep dive into technical SEO. You have spoken, of course, at various conferences about common mistakes companies make, especially around href lang and canonicalization. What are some of the trickiest technical SEO issues you have encountered lately, and how did you go about solving them or helping people solve them?
I hit one with Ahrefs the other day. Well, this has been maybe a month ago or so now. But it was fascinating because like we couldn't crawl this robots.txt file, and I saw like nothing. I was like, there's no reason, there's no block or anything. Like we just weren't. It's not that we couldn't crawl it. Sorry, it's we weren't processing it correctly. And what it ended up being was a what is called what is it? Like a zero width space. And so like it's this invisible character that you can't really see.
Okay, just like a
Uh,
space.
but it's not even a space. Like that's just it. It took me a while to even figure out how do I put this in a file so I could test it. But I was using, I think it was Will Critchlow. He has a robots.txt tester that parses just like Googlebot does. And yeah, it was flagging it. And I think the one on technicalseo.com also flagged it. But I'd never seen this literally invisible character. I've seen other ones, but like this particular invisible character. Like the whole thing was like disallow this or whatever, but there was that character in there which made it not disallow. So we were crawling it, and they were like, "Why are you crawling this? It says you shouldn't," but it's because of this invisible character that was there.
Okay. And outside hrefs, so do you see some other tricky technical SEO issues?
Most of the time, it's either people usually hit me up with issues on JavaScript or hreflang. JavaScript in particular, there's so many things that can go wrong. I mean, even when we were building some of the new sections on our site, it was like we hit almost every major JavaScript issue that you're going to hit, where content's like hidden instead of being displayed by default, or Like the links worked for users, but they weren't there for search engines. Even some interesting things around like multiple like canonical tags and title tags and stuff. JavaScript is just always one of those things where I think it's hard to get right, especially if devs have never like had to run through. Well, it's great though. Like once you solve the issues for any future framework, anything built with that, it's gonna be fine. But if they've never like had to go through with SEO, they don't know what to look for, et cetera. It's always a process to get the framework to a point where you no longer have a bunch of these issues. And like we had even gone to a pre-render solution for a bit, and even that they had some issues. But I think we're back to where we're actually server-side rendering it all ourselves. But then some stuff was missing from the render on the server, and it's a number of different issues. Hreflang is always complicated. We tried to make that easier, actually. We built this awesome, it was like first of its kind, I think still the only one out there. It's a visualization of the Hreflang cluster. So it shows you like what's actually linking to what, what's referencing what, and like we flag in red if like one of the references is missing or nothing's linking to that page or that page has an error. So I personally love that view. I wish, when I was trying to show people these issues, like we just basically all use spreadsheets and we're like, this is missing and blah, blah, blah. But it was so hard to explain. And now this visual is like, just go look at that and look where it's red and solve that.
So this tool, Hreflang, is it with the Hrefs, is this under? Because I really didn't know about this.
It's been out over a year now, I think. It's under site audit. There's like an Hreflang section under the what do we call it?
Right.
So I think page inspect under there.
Right.
And it's got the whole graph and it's got a whole table below it and tells you exactly what's wrong with it.
Right. Because we use in our website Hreflang, we have 3 different websites for UK, India, and the US. So we do that. But if a client sometime comes and my developer says what kind of Hreflang to use, I say the best example is go open apple.com and see how they are doing it. I find that's the best example for using Hreflang. Just copy whatever they are doing. Is that what I advise you?
Interesting. I don't even know what their setup is, but yeah, Apple probably does well.
They have a very good setup because they have the largest number of websites, of course, and how they rank and everything. So I always look up to Apple for that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And so what are some technical SEO aspects that marketers should be aware of even without being an expert?
Probably the biggest one is just indexing. I mean, it's the page indexed or not. Like, it doesn't matter what else you do. If the page is an index, like improving your title tag or your content, it ain't going to matter. Well, sort of. If it's marked no index, it's not going to matter. But if you're not indexed because of the quality of your content, then improving the content can help with that.
Yeah. So an interesting thing, what happened a few days back, we were working for a client and his site was not indexed in Google. We tried everything. We tried submitting into index. It will take all submit, but the site was not getting indexed in Google. And it took us like almost 6-7 hours. And then one of my guy went into the Google search console searching, and somehow client has accidentally blocked his homepage. And there was no alert coming. Even when you submit in the index, it was taking the index. Okay, that was one thing I learned. So we always say, okay, if the page is not indexed, see if it has somebody blocked it.
Yeah, the URL removal tool too has caused like so many issues. Like I've seen, well, there's been some major case studies. What was the last big one? Probably LinkedIn, I think, like accidentally removed their entire website from Google for like a day just because someone misused the tool from Google.
Right. Internal linking is an area you have stressed before. Could you elaborate on its importance and share a couple of advanced tips that might help our listeners improve their internal linking strategy?
Yeah, I mean, internal links, external links, as far as page rank is concerned, it doesn't matter. Like people think like links from other sites count more, but really it depends on like what you may have more relevant pages on other websites, but you could easily have relevant pages on your own website. So getting those internal links, you control the anchor text, what it says, like you're sending the relevant signals, you're sending like the context, everything along with these. They're super important. I've seen this time and time again. Every time we add internal links, we want to go boost something. We either like go add some content, we go add some internal links. It works like every time. As far as how to do it, we actually built a tool inside Audit. There's an internal link opportunities tool. It replaced my old process that involved like scraping Google and crawling websites and a bunch of stuff. Now it's just like go in there. You can filter by the page you're linking from. Like if you're going in there to update an article or whatever, you can go look and see like these are the opportunities to link out. Or if you're building a new page, you can go and say like these are the opportunities to get links to that page. It makes it really, really easy, I think. Another way, if you're doing bulk, if you've got a lot of content on a blog, I will always recommend like a related post section. It's an easy way to kind of like get stuff. And we even did that from Ahrefs. I ran a study on that because I wasn't sure. Like we do a very good job internally linking our content already. And so I was curious, would we actually see any uplift if we added this related post section? And the answer was, yeah, we did. And when I looked at it, it was because a lot of the stuff that gets recommended is actually related content, but that it wasn't natural in any way in the article to link over to these. Like it was such a like a similar topic, similar post, but like there wasn't any natural way reason to promote or link to those. And so a lot of these actually came into the related post section instead and got a bump, which was great. Because I didn't expect to see much just because we actually do such a good job with the internal linking.
So is there a thumb rule of how many internal links should I pass from a, let's say, a blog post to my other pages, money pages, or other blogs?
There's no like hard and fast rule. I mean, it's your website. You can kind of do what you want. Even Google has said that. Obviously, at a certain point, um, it just looks bad. I think in the text, like if you've got this paragraph, like 3 sentences, and you've got like 17 internal links that are all highlighted or whatever, that doesn't look great for users, in my opinion. But you can always like break that out a little different if you've got some related things and just put a section below the content that actually is like promoting certain articles or whatever. But I think that would be my only concern is that how it actually like looks for users. You don't just want everything to be highlighted. Like a link is where does one start, where does another stop, etc. Otherwise, yeah, it's pretty much your site. You can just do what you want. Even the anchor text. I know a lot of people like to vary the anchor text and stuff. It's not something I pay attention to. I'm like, this is what it should be.
So you can have different anchor text pointing to same page is what you, or should we always go with the same anchor text?
You can do what you want is my point. A lot of people will vary that. Sometimes like I will, sometimes I won't. There's no real like right or wrong there. When we tried to look at that, like I just can't see a difference basically.
Okay. Okay. And I mean, of course, technical SEO doesn't complete if we don't discuss schemas. So how important are schemas in today's SEO world, and which are the most important schemas webmasters should pay attention to or should have on their website?
As far as importance, I mean they're not a ranking factor, but they can get you SERP features. So it's not gonna like make you rank higher, but it can put you in places where you wouldn't be eligible. As for the ones that are important, Google has what they call the solution gallery for schema markup, and it's basically all the schema that they support. So usually the ones in there are going to get you something like the site link search box or a specific listing in like the product things or videos or all that kind of stuff. Uh, I typically will only do the ones that actually like give me something. Like I'm not gonna be like markup everything and do this other markup. Like if they're not using it, maybe they will in the future or something. But it seems like extra work with no benefit. So I'm only gonna do the ones that I are actually like going to get me something in the search results.
Now, for those who want to learn more about the technical side, are there any resources you recommend?
Anything I wrote on Ahrefs, that and Google has pretty solid documentation. I wouldn't have said that a few years ago, but they've been doing a lot on that end. Definitely read through all their developer documentation, their SEO documentation. Like it's actually pretty solid now.
Okay. And so of course now Google removed the cache option. You have to go and look at the cache option, and we are now seeing where those options cache colon is also not working for many of the website recently. I don't know if they introduced way back also, for what reason, God knows. So So those are the things which it becomes challenging for a webmaster as well, because especially with the server side rendering, I would say.
Yeah, well, the server side rendering, like, it was never a good option to use the cache anyway. The TLDR technically there is people's content security policy actually wouldn't allow resources to be loaded on other websites. Where Google was loading their cache was another website. So in a lot of cases, like the cache would look broken anyway because it wasn't actually getting the resources it needed to load the page properly. So that was never a good way to test that one. But yeah, it's getting more complicated to test these setups. Even the testing tools now, there are different user agents since last year, and there's a few more like hurdles and stuff to jump through to actually test things.
Okay. Now, let's talk about SEO for beginners versus advanced. With your extensive experience, what advice would you give to someone just starting in SEO today, given how fast paced and data driven the industry has become?
Just be a sponge. You really need to like read, or if your preferred method is listening, watching, go to YouTube, go to podcasts. You don't know what you don't know. And unfortunately, like in our industry, you're probably also going to get some outdated information or some wrong information at some point. But to start with, you just have to absorb as much as you can, learn as much as you can. It's a funny path people take because they actually start off usually pretty simply, like, let's write good content, let's make some links, and then like the people get into this like crazy nonsense and detail about every single thing, and they spend a lot of time on things that don't really matter, and then finally they learn to prioritize and stuff, and they go back and they're like, well, we should just work on content and links again. It's kind of the path most people end up taking anyway.
Right, right. And for those who are a bit more advanced, maybe managing large website or an enterprise SEO, what should they be focusing on in 2025 to stay ahead of the game?
Whatever issues that you have, people really always want to go advanced. 99.9% of SEO is just do the basics, do it well. It's hard work, I think, to actually put in the time and effort. Like you can spend all this time analyzing, figuring out all this other stuff, but again, content and links, like that for the most part is going to have more difference than go and implement schema stuff or like focusing on a bunch of these. There's a ton of technical things that are flagged by audit tools where I'm like, that doesn't matter. I just don't care. We can do this. It's a best practice. It's not going to make a difference in our ranking. So it really is like learning to prioritize those things and like what you should be working on that's going to have an impact. And it's very hard, I think, for SEOs in general to get there. But especially if you're in-house or at an agency, a lot of times is you actually have to sell the work, and people will sell stuff. They're like, we need to do this. It's best practice. And we do it. And the devs spent time on it and everything. And there was no impact. So that when you go to make your business case of like, we should do this the next time, it is less likely they're actually going to do it. So really bringing forward the ideas that move the needle. Those are what you always need to focus on. We created a whole report in Ahrefs called the Opportunities Report.
Right.
It's all the things that we've seen over the years, like from our own experience and stuff. Like if you work on these things, it's actually going to help you. So for anyone new, or even if you've been in there for a while, in the industry for a while, I would honestly take a look at that and say like, okay, yeah, I probably should go do these redirects, and I probably should go like work on this content, and let me take a look at that cannibalization that's going on over here. And it really is the things that we think will help the most people.
Okay. And how important are links as a ranking factor in 2024?
We are running a new study on this right now, actually. I don't know that much has changed. I'm waiting on like the historical data from that to see, because we're running a whole like correlation study and all. But in general, almost every like SEO factor always ends up with a weak, what's called Spearman correlation, which means, yeah, it has an impact, but it's not necessarily like you can't just build links and that's all you do. Like it's one of the things and it will make a difference. If unless it's a completely uncompetitive market, you could build links and like rank for something uncompetitive. But for something competitive, you usually need links and content. Like you got to have some on-page stuff right. It's never just one thing. So I what I expect from this study is that yeah, we'll once again see that it is somewhere in what is considered a weak Spearman correlation, but that doesn't mean that it's not important. It just means it's one of many things that you need to do to actually rank.
So let's see, link from a lower traffic relevant blog or link from a higher traffic generic blog. Which one is you prefer?
I have both. uh, I would probably go. Hmm,
And
it's a
I'm
tough
talking for a new
call.
website. Let me sweeten it up. I'm talking for a new website.
It's a really tough call, honestly. You're weighing different signals. Like you now have like relevancy factors versus like strength factors there, and both are kind of important. Some combination of both on different websites. Generally, I would just take the relevant one. It's probably easier to get like if it's something in your industry, you may even know the person, could just message them or your client
Right,
does. Be like,
right,
hey, Jim over there, like, I see you got a blog about this. Like, pick up the phone, call someone. You don't do that anymore, but like, that kind of stuff works. Those relationships, even in the SEO industry now, if I send people a message on Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever, like, hey, can you link over here? They're likely to do it, but it's because of that established relationship over many years.
right. Because generally, what we have seen is in our personal experience for a new website, of course, the link from a very high domain is not, it tends to be counterproductive. But if the site is, let's say, somewhat aged, a link from a higher site, like for example, Forbes is gives much more push to the rankings rather than a link from a lower authority relevant sites. I mean, just what we have seen with our experience.
Maybe. Yeah, some of those sites though that you would think like they pass a lot of value, I would say that some of them might surprise you that they don't actually pass value. Like Google's realized they link out or certain sections of that. Like okay, Forbes.com, yeah, the Forbes marketplace, I don't
Yeah,
know, or the
it's
what
all
is
in the
the
news these
Forbes
days.
contributors where you have to pay to write the
Yes,
articles there. I would almost be willing to bet like Google doesn't count the links from there at all.
right. Right. Now, let's talk about content strategies for 2025 and, of course, for now as well. Of course, content audits and updates are key to sustained success in SEO, specifically when your content gets stale. People talk about doing blog content refresh and everything. What's your take on refreshing content versus creating new content? And how do you balance these two approaches?
Well, I'm going to throw in a wrench to this one because I am a big fan of not just like refreshes, but testing on your content. So there's certain blogs on Ahrefs that I really wanted to rank, and one of them in particular, like I think I was ranking like 20th or 25th after publishing. Wasn't great. But instead of like scrapping and rewriting the whole blog, I was kind of like, well, what if I did this and I just go add a section or go change the title or run a bunch of tests. I added some data to it. In fact, it was like, what if I throw some Ahrefs data in here? Like, what happens? So I ran
Right.
like 20 some tests on this one blog over a course of like a few weeks. Luckily, like we're crawled fast, so like I could just do this, see if it was crawled, and like check the ranking updates. And yeah, a few tests over a few weeks, and I got it up to third. So I'm more of a fan of like why scrap something. A lot of people like that's what they do. They write something 2 years later. They're like, well, this doesn't work. They completely rewrite it. That unfortunately was like a lot of the Ahrefs process for a while too. So we just go completely rewrite the topic, new take, whatever. When some of it doesn't need to just be completely scrapped. Like the information is there, it's good. Maybe I'm just missing something. So having another pair of eyes on that, or even a fresh set of eyes. Like you wrote something 2 years ago, you can probably go back and look and say like, well, look at the content that's out there now, and what are they talking about that I missed, and just go update that instead of completely rewriting. As far as new versus updating, it depends on how important it is. We're at the point where I want us to actually be doing more updating than creating new content because we've written about most SEO
Right.
topics on our blog. But that's a pretty unique position to be in. But it's always a matter of how important it is to us, and that's not just traffic, but like business value. We rate every single post as far as a business value? Is this like showcasing a bunch of our product in here? Is it like going to do well for traffic? Like all that gets taken into consideration when we say we're going to write something new or we're going to go update something. Because we want things that are going to matter. It's not content for content's sake. It's content to kind of push the product and educate at the same time.
And of course, you must have heard about the Kevin Indy's new study where it says that if the index of if you have too many pages, then that's what helpful content update also hit. So you need to. So he saw that a lot of pages which were not crawled, not indexed, were also an issue. Trimming those down helps in ranking. What is your take on?
Maybe in some cases, in other cases, maybe not. I've seen a lot of stuff about helpful content related to internal links and over optimization, and everyone's got these theories. I saw something about like brand versus something. I can't even
Yeah, that
remember.
Moz did that study recently, right?
Yeah, I take all of that with, I mean, there's some truth in all of them. Obviously, more pages that are lower quality, not great for overall site signals. Brand stuff, I mean, there's some stuff as far as like EAT and stuff that would indicate, yeah, maybe it makes some difference, but is that the main thing? Or the one on like the over optimization that could have been like a selection bias. It was the same time like all the affiliate stuff get hit. So how many affiliate pages were? It could be that the affiliates, yeah, they were optimized well, but they all got hit anyway. It doesn't not necessarily because they were optimized well, but because of the type of content they were. So all this data and all these studies, I think, have some selection bias and some story that the person themselves wants to tell. It's just the way it is. I do the same thing, honestly, in a lot of my studies. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I would take most of them with a grain of salt. It's not just start deleting a bunch of pages. You tell that to like a news site when now you're deleting history, and that's not great. Like there was a whole thing about that, like the web is disappearing. Yeah, especially for news sites, you don't want to be deleting a bunch of old stories and stuff. It may not be popular, but like someone 5 years from now may want to find that. If you deleted it, well, it's gone.
Okay. Now, in relation to content strategy, how should brands approach clustering content and developing topical authority for the long term?
So I'm going to throw another wrench. I don't know that I really believe in topical authority. I mean, somewhat, but you go look at Forbes. They write about everything. They rank for everything. Do they have topical authority to everything? No. There's a lot more than just, again, it's one of many things. Like it came out in the leak that, yeah, like the distance from, I forget what they call it exactly, but let's just say like distance from topic or distance from like where what the site typically talks about is a thing. But like that's one of 200 plus ranking factors that all have like 50 things involved with them. So it's one measure, one thing. It doesn't mean that like if I have this argument all the time, we should run this test. Like if I write about hot dogs on Ahrefs, like our site isn't about hot dogs, but I guarantee you I could rank for hot dogs.
Okay,
So
without
you could go off topic and still rank for things. Yeah, it's one of the, as far as like what content to create, your competitors is a great place to start. You can look at Content Gap or when doing research, like everyone clusters now. We have clusters by parent topic, by keywords. There's like two more ways we might add to do clustering, but might confuse people too. But it's great because you kind of get to see like what is typically like ranking for these things, what your competitors are already ranking for. Like I send people, typically business folks, top pages. This is your competitor's most successful content. Go do that. Like if they just start somewhere, that would be the place to start. Like, what's your main competitor? Okay, go to top pages. Look, this is what's driving value for them. Are these important things to you? Yeah. Okay, let's go create those. Super simple. But you can do that for a whole industry. Like I've written about this where literally I'll go and pull top content for hundreds of companies and then cluster it together and say like, here's literally the most valuable content within an entire industry. Like it's talking about these topics, and then like, do I have those? If not, go create those.
so
Nothing complicated other than like the scale of the data. But again, you don't have to go that way. Just one competitor. Start with one competitor. Like, what are they doing better than you?
so do you believe is topical clustering a real thing or no?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. Now, if you have related pages and you're linking to other related pages, you're probably getting a little more value from that. Doesn't mean that like you only need to. Some people are fans of like siloing, and the way they view it is like never link outside the silo. I would say those sites are hurting themselves. Like if you actually look at the way PageRank passes, if you got silo here, silo here, silo here, and you start interlinking between them, you can actually model the PageRank flow, and typically it's going to bring everything up, not like it's going to hurt you, which is a lot of what a lot of people think. So it depends on how you look at it. Now, should you create content relevant to your niche, your topic? Yes. Is it everything that is it so important like people pitch it to be? I am a little more skeptical there.
Because what exactly PageRank is, if you are giving back, PageRank is like a currency. If you are linking back to too many pages, you are actually just spending all the currency, because the power keeps on going lesser and lesser. So will that silo not help when you are linking to lesser pages? The PageRank is not getting leaking away.
I would be less concerned with it leaking to other pages. Generally, more internal links, more internal linking between sections. It's going to bring the scores for like the entire website, typically.
Okay. And so what is your take on Google League? How much of it do you think is true?
Uh, Probably all of it. I don't think it was intentionally put out there. I know I've seen some conspiracy theories about that, but I don't think that's stuff that they really wanted us to see. I don't think they necessarily cared that we saw it either. There wasn't too much like new or like tell me how you changed your strategy. Did you do anything different from it?
The only thing was the click throughs was CTR was an eye opener, because we thought, of course, we knew that it's serious. I mean, Google takes it into account, but that's something. I also interestingly tested when you know that Google, how many times you refresh the page. So we continued, we built a new page. So Google has, let's say, 10 pages in the index before it refresh it to force refresh the whole content. So we tried that a bit. Didn't work out very well, honestly. So we every day we would do one change and submit to Google to index and see does it move the needle. So we did it for 10, 12 days, and we thought maybe it's gonna force it to crawl the whole page. But I don't think any success out of it. But one thing which we knew, of course, Google has two type of indexes. One, it immediately indexes the page, which is not exactly a ranking factor, and then it runs the whole analysis, and then after a few days, the actual ranking stabilizes. So that's, but I think, yes, you are right. Most of these factors were known. It just confirmed what we knew.
Yeah, the click through rate, a lot of that came out in like the DOJ trial and everything here in the
Yes.
US, like all the nav boost stuff. But the stuff in the leak, like we don't even know how it's really used. Like they are using some Chrome data, but they've said time and time again they'll use it for ranking, and it's probably true, honestly. Like they probably use it for like content discovery. Do I need to crawl this through pages? Why is it popular? Let's go crawl and index this. So without more context to the data in the league, like we can't really assume. It could be for crawling, it could be for indexing, it could be for testing, for QA, like not necessarily just for ranking.
Right. What is your take on the CTR boost or CTR hack? You
It's a
don't
little
need to
complicated.
answer that if you don't feel like.
Yeah, that one's complicated. I'm pretty mixed on it, to be honest. I've
Okay.
run tests actually to try and manipulate the ranking results. I did this probably a decade ago, in fact, with like I was using the Tor network routing through. I had another friend who did this with like residential IPs. Like we were trying all kinds of different things, all kinds of we were using like virtual machines and just trying to
Okay.
manipulate like click behavior and simulate like normal search behavior, all kinds of different stuff at all kinds of different cadences or volumes. And we never actually were able to impact it. And there are entire like click networks, trading networks, and stuff. I think if they worked the way that people seem to think, that you would see some case studies on this working. But to my knowledge, there's never been a single case study that shows this actually works, besides the ones from Rand Fishkin, which were very temporary. Like usually the results are for a day. And Google explained that before, that like basically they're looking for trending things or things that are hot. So Yeah, like they could move something from page 2 to number 1 or whatever for a day, but then it goes back to the normal ranking. It doesn't work long term in any study that I've ever seen, anyone I know that's ever tried. Yeah, these entire networks of buy clicks or trade clicks and everything, you never hear anyone talking about these. They're out there. They've been out there for years. You would think there would be one SEO at least like pushing these or showing
Right,
case studies if they actually worked, and there hasn't been.
right. All right. With that, Patrick, it's been a fantastic having you on the show today. Your insights, as always, are invaluable. Before we wrap up, where can our listeners follow your latest updates or catch your upcoming talks?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, it's at Patrick Stocks on both. Talks, I'll be at Ahrefs Evolve. We're running a conference here in Raleigh, actually. It's like tech SEO specific called Tech SEO Connect.
Okay.
I don't even know what else is on my schedule right now. I'll be in Miami at a legal SEO conference in December, I think. I'll be at Brighton, US, and San Diego.
All right. And of course, thanks again for being here, Patrick. And thanks to our listener for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with anyone you know who is trying to up their SEO game, specifically technical. And stay tuned for more expert interviews. Until next time, keep optimizing.